Hello, welcome to Future Left Podcast. I'm Adam Simpson. Thank you for joining us today. Casey Rogers has the day off. He just keeps taking days off over and over. Just a taker, that guy. He's one of the 47%. You remember those people. Don't get me started. Anyway, visit us at futureleft.org. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on LinkedIn. Follow us on, all that other stuff. We're on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes. Whatever you're into, be into it with us. That's what I think. Joining me today in place of Casey Rogers, filling those shoes, those tiny, tiny shoes, Michael Bufano, another co-founder at Future Left. And today we're talking about my very favorite topic, the topic that I insist on always talking about, even when it's uncalled for, robots. Had a lot of robot news this week, Michael.
Yes, we did.
The EU Parliament, limping along as it is moving to label robots as, quote, electronic people. Fucking told you so. I told you so.
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, aren't we? With
Absolutely.
Labeling robots as people, it's a little...
Yeah, no, it is. It seems to me what's going on here, this is really just a tax scheme. The article kind of mentioned like, we're going to make robots pay taxes, but not really. There's actually an image on Fusion with, there's a picture of a robot, the one from Terminator with a sign that said no new taxes. Like the damn Terminator's a libertarian.
This is one of, I freaking hate the internet. This is one of those instances where, what the European Parliament was discussing versus what comes out on the internet, there's such a huge gap between the two that it's tough to take the internet seriously at times. I mean, I could imagine they were just having it like a kind of off the cuff discussion on, tax companies.
I got to jump in here. I love the internet. I got to say, obviously, I do think that the gun was jumped, but robots paying taxes, it's a little more subtle than that. But I clicked on the article because of that. I was like, what?
So see, the idea behind it is just to, add extra taxes to companies that use, automation instead of...
Yeah, specifically make them pay into Social Security schemes. The fear being that robots are taking your job. Terminator's not coming to kill your kids. It's coming to put you out of work, put you in the po house.
Yes,
and when he does, I hope we have the foresight to prepare for it and be in the position to say thank you to Skynet. I may disagree with this strategy as we learn more about it, but I think the foresight that's being shown here is something I want the United States to start thinking about.
And this is, I know we're getting back into the whole EU discussion here. It's one of the things I love about the EU. Because of this interconnection, they're investing in scientific progress, scientific development. So, you're right. I wish the United States was as more thoughtful about the future.
But I don't know. The personhood word is the thing that kind of freaked me out. And I was like, again, the gun was jumped, but there's also an article in the New York Times this week about robots, specifically automated cars, self-driving cars, having to deal with the ethics of the classic trolley car dilemma. In a sense, we're dealing with the programmers having to deal with this and program it into a car. The article is called "When Machines Need Morals." It was in the New York Times by Jim Kerstetter. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. So this article bothered me a bit. I mean, what the article does is it lays out these scenarios where, okay, so if you're driving a car, it's the robot's running the car, right? And they see three people that just walk into the middle of the street. Should the robot choose to run these people over to save your own life, or should the robot choose to crash the car into the wall?
Right. It's the classic trolley dilemma.
Okay, well, but here's the thing. They're like, oh, but how could the robot, possibly know about these ethical dilemmas? Well, how could human beings? I mean, we struggle with these type of dilemmas, right? How can we expect more of our robot overlords to be any more concrete on these kind of ethical questions?
Yeah.
So I don't think that I'm not bothered by the fact that a robot would make the wrong choice there, because
humans would probably make the wrong choice. I agree. I mean, it's the kind of thing in science fiction, there are all kinds of examples of a malevolent artificial intelligence or machinery. The Terminator, he didn't want to pay taxes, so he's going to kill everyone. Or HAL 9000 or whatever the hell.
I guess if Ayn Rand wrote the Terminator, that would be her main plot line.
Yeah, right. Exactly. In my mind, AI and robotics and the morals in there, it's all going to be informed by our morals. And they can do enhanced calculations and enhanced equations that we can't. And that might eventually lead them to different conclusions about things. But that's so far off, I think, that independent machine thought is very far off. So I think it's kind of an out there conversation. But considering the advances in Google's DeepMind and other initiatives, I think it's an interesting topic. But I don't know. I thought it was an interesting idea that like Google's autonomous car has to think, to weigh lives and consider them.
It's gonna have to. I mean, we both know the second these cars really start coming out of the street in mass, the first time there's like a major accident involving one of these things, where you have that similar dilemma laid out in the article, there's going to be a shitstorm.
Recently, one of these autonomous cars was in California, accidentally just a light little fender bender, slow moving accident with a city bus, I think. But it was just kind of like dink, but they had to stop, look at it. No one was hurt, but there was this huge outcry like, see, so it's not going to work. You can't have robots, blah, blah, blah. And I think people will, at the first sign of any trouble, we've cut down so much on traffic fatalities because of seatbelts and driver's license and stuff like that. The next big leap, I think, is going to be self-driving cars, though, autonomous cars. But people will still complain about it.
You know, Adam, like most people, they don't care about these rational, like macro statistical arguments.
Yeah.
We love our headlines and those individual stories where we get to make these hasty generalizations.
They're going to love that. Google's DeepMind kills 13 on I-95.
Because these things will probably save lives, right? I could imagine that robots would be better on the road eventually, right, than human beings.
I think without question, our lives will get better and our lives will get safer as A, robots take our jobs, and B, robots start driving our cars. It's so silly to me. And the applications for automation are so fascinating. I feel like every day I read something new about AI being used in the legal system or the medical profession or climate change research or one of 100 other things. It's just fascinating. Did you see, by the way, the video of Spot Mini from Boston Dynamics?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's a great video. You can watch this quadruped robot, not quadriplegic, certainly. Quadruped robot. Boston Dynamics focuses on robots with legs, not often bipedal. Normally they have four legs.
And so they design legs that essentially are like a human,
it's still a quadruped. So Big Dog was their first one in 2005, and it had like military applications. It's massive. This one, Spot Mini, it's pretty small. It's about the size of a kind of a big dog, but not the big dog. But instead of a head, it has like kind of a hand or claw. But they showed it like doing the dishes with the hand.
This stuff. Oh wow! So that's it's incredible, man. All this technology. It amazes me that people are so pessimistic. About where our society is going. It's as people are complaining about how terrible their lives are. They have a machine in their pocket that could instantly connect them to all of the world's information that has ever been recorded, ever. And they could contact with people halfway across the globe. I mean, that's fucking incredible. Yeah. So it is amazing.
I'm also very optimistic about robots, but I think that, we can't be overly optimistic. We need to start thinking about these things. These need to be raised during the presidential campaign because within the next 4 years, perhaps the next 8 years, someone's going to have to deal with this. I mean, some people are going to hate this. I want to hear Donald Trump talk about robots. I want to hear about Hillary Clinton talk about robots. Gary Johnson, Jill Stein.
There needs to be discussion, and the solution isn't, just like with the EU, the solution isn't to get rid of the robots, right? The solution is how can we integrate this new technology in our lives to bring about the maximum benefit to our society, to bring about the most happiness for the most amount of people.
But speaking of, I wanted to mention this for a while, actually. Speaking of thinking about the future, there's a project on Kickstarter called "The Robots Are Coming Today?" ? So basically, it's a tabletop game, and you basically do your best to keep your job and survive the coming of the robots to the job market. I think it'll probably be a more relevant game for kids than Monopoly coming up pretty soon. You know
I guess it's kind of like Sims, but with like an apocalyptic kind of theme to it, I guess.
It's not like Sims. It's like a tabletop game. It's got cards and such. As a result of your ongoing networking efforts, your affiliated program becomes popular among a group of influential bloggers. I mean, it just goes to show, I think people are coming with interesting ways to pose this conversation, and I think it's a conversation we need to have. I heard of an article that I'm toying with that'll come out someday, inshallah. But basically, it's just suggesting that we ask presidential candidates about robots. It's something I really can't emphasize enough. Whether or not we'll publish it, whether or not we'll wait closer to the debate before we publish it, like the presidential debates between whoever the candidates are, likely Trump, Clinton, and Johnson will be on the stage.
That would be an interesting idea, just to put up a list of questions for us about what we would want to ask, Clinton and Trump about, just issues affecting long-term future development.
In my mind, I want to know, are you concerned about robots taking people's job? That in itself is its own question, because some economists are a little iffy about it. They're like, but most of that is like, the robots will create abundance, which will create more demand, which will create more jobs in itself. And it's kind of built on this free market, continuous, everlasting growth in the economy, which I think is a mythology. I think it's something we all a lot of people believe in. I actually don't believe in it, but I think it's built on mythology. So, but the second question would be, what do you think should be done about it? Because some people may have this idea that we have to stop robots from doing that, and I think that's the wrong answer. And other people might want to embrace it, but I want to know how they want to embrace it and what their plan is for people who are going to be unemployed by that idea.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I also think there has to be an informative aspect to this, too. I think a lot of Americans are not really that aware of this issue, of this concept. That's why there's no going back from global. A lot of these conservatives, whether it's in the European Union, the United States, they think they could turn back the clock. They want to go back to the 1950s, their supposed golden era, right? The 50s and 60s. There is no turning back the clock here, and this is one of those reasons. It's even if you drop out of the EU, cut off all trade with other countries, you still have to deal with this rapid advance in technology and the fact that we live in a world that's becoming more and more interconnected,
right,
and a world where automated machines are going to be taking our jobs. It's something we all have to deal with. And people have to at least be aware that these issues exist. And I don't think a lot of people realize that's why a lot of factory jobs have been shut down. It's not just that we're sending them over to China, as Trump would say. Yeah. There's a lot of other reasons.
And if you look at China's labor market, China is investing so much into robotics. They're making really big, interesting efforts into not just robotics, but also climate change. They're cutting their carbon emissions specifically. They have all these state-led advances, and don't get me wrong, obviously I believe in democracy, but it gives me an admiration for the pace of change, because democracy by nature is kind of slow, but China has the luxury of not worrying about that bullshit. They just get shit done.
Some other country or the technology already exists, but there's a lack of capital within that country to invest in it. The state could kind of step in and take their massive amount of resources. Right. And so, for example, when dam technology first came, hydroelectric power, the United States under FDR was able to invest massive amounts of money into building a system of dams, electrical grids. Once the technology was created, the state had the capital, right, to be able to invest in it. So the state can play a role there. The state's not the most innovative entity, right? It's because of the lack of competition, but it's because of its size, it can invest in things that already exist. China right now is not there in terms of innovation.
I'm not praising China's governance model, their economic model, their innovation model. There's just, there are times when they're in a few areas where I'm like, wow, they're actually making pretty good progress, and I just I can't help but be like, wow, I wish we could get shit done. For instance, they don't have to deal with some idiot from Oklahoma that brings a snowball to the Congress with and thinks it's proof that climate change is a myth. You know what I mean? They don't have to deal with that shit.
You want something so much better for your country, and you just can't convince a lot of. I look at a lot of these Trump supporters, man, and I'm just wondering what the fuck is going on in their heads, And
democracy can definitely be slowed down by the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator in our country being Jim Inhofe, the congressman from Oklahoma. But thanks everyone for joining us. I think that'll be it for this week. Be sure to visit us at featureleft.org and be sure to follow us on all that stuff I mentioned. And we'll see you next week. Bye bye.